Welcome back to this latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story, President of Dale Carnegie Tokyo Training Japan, and my special guest today is Ryan McGuire, who is the Managing Director of Cutter's Studio, and we are in Cutter's Studio right at this moment, filming live here. So, Ryan, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Greg.
Now,
it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And you know, how is it that you're running Cutter's Studio in Japan? Well, give me the backstory here.
Cutter Studios is a production company. We got our start in Chicago in 1980. We've been around for, what does that make it? 42 years. Yeah. Recently, Cutter Studios Tokyo has gone independent, so we are a Japanese entity here. We're untethered from the mothership. In Japan, we provide production services for a lot of multinational brands through their advertising agencies and also directly to them. We pride ourselves on our creative ideation and the execution of those ideas. Right. Recently, Cutter Studios Tokyo has begun moving into we're dipping our toe into the entertainment world.
Oh, okay.
So we grew up a commercial house. We've been doing advertising for a long, long time. But now as the advertising worlds and the entertainment world seem to be coming together, we see a new opportunity in entertainment and branded entertainment.
Okay. So how's it that you're here? Why aren't you in Chicago? Why aren't you in LA? Why are you in Japan? How long have you been with Cutter Studio? What's the backstory there?
So this is gonna be a long one. I first came to Japan in 1989. I came on a short exchange program with my junior high school. It was junior high school, yes. I had been taking Japanese there, and
so where's the junior high school? Chicago,
just north of the city.
That's pretty advanced for Chicago to have Japanese on offer in a junior high school. That's pretty impressive.
Kind of, but if you remember the time, 1989, the height of the bubble, America's going crazy, thinking, hey, if you don't speak Japanese, you're not going to have a future.
All right.
So it wasn't probably unique to our junior high school. I think that there were a lot of schools especially in the metropolitan areas that were teaching Japanese.
Okay.
As you know, I think that was the time of of gung ho and
Japan is number one and all that sort of stuff.
Japan is number one. I saw a statistic the other day about the number of was it not the 500, but like the top 100 companies on the planet, and at the time most of them were Japanese. Now a fraction. But
yeah. So exchange program, Japan. What happened?
So did the exchange program, came here. I enjoyed it. I didn't think, hey, I'm going to pick up I was 13 or 12 at the time, so I didn't think I was going to pick up everything and move to Japan. But once you start to dip your toe into Japan, it seems like these circumstances just kind of come to you. And I had befriended a couple of Japanese people in Chicago, and then it was their mother it kind of took a liking to me. So every time that somebody came in town from Japan, she would ask me to show them around, and it was something that kind of kept recurring. And I went to high school. I spent part of my high school in Switzerland, and when I was in Switzerland, I met a couple of Japanese people that were at the same school, and they introduced me to some universities here. I ended up applying to schools in the U.S. I ended up applying to schools in Germany, and I applied to schools in Japan. I got into Sophia University and ended up doing my undergrad here in Yotsuya at Sophia.
So you're my kohai?
Yes. Actually, I met Sherwin last night, who's also my senpai.
Yeah. Georgie graduate. Mm-hmm. So, okay, you graduate from Georgie. What happens then?
I graduated from Sophia, spent a few years here in Japan worked at a bar. I actually worked at a bar through university and then after university. And then I got a job in marketing. And I thought marketing was going to be an incredibly creative, fast-paced, exciting endeavor. And it wasn't.
Oh.
So, at least that company wasn't. So I decided that I wanted to get into this business. Now, Cutter Studios, full disclosure, was started by my father.
Oh,
so in 1980, it was my dad growing up in the, if you can imagine what the film world was like then. I mean, they cut film.
Yes,
Like
actual physical film.
with, yes, it was
gluing stuff together.
big machine. And when I was a kid, I used to hang out, and we used to love to go down to his office because there was all these things that I could play with, and splice film with really sharp knife-like things. And he was one of the first to start to implement Avid, which is the computer editing system that we use right now.
Right.
So he, that business took off. He was a one-man show, I think, in the beginning, but then grew and grew and grew. I first interned there when I was 17, when I was on my way to Japan before I started at Sophia. And I think to a certain extent, I got the bug there, but then it was on layaway for the time that I was at university. At university, I was in the photography club, but that was as close as I got to film. And then after my stint in marketing, I decided, okay, you know what, I need a creative endeavor. So I jumped back across the Pacific, started at Cutters in Chicago as an intern. And that's my dad wasn't going to give me any special
You went
treatment.
straight into vice president or anything like that?
No, by no means. Went in as an intern, worked up to assistant editor at the time, and then eventually moved to LA, joined Cutter Studios in LA, or was transferred. I guess I requested a transfer, and helped kind of grow that shop as an editor at the time. Then the financial crisis of 2008, 2009 happened, and LA got hit pretty hard, especially the film industry, where it's a pretty saturated industry. There are a lot of people vying for position, vying for work, and everybody pretty much was looking for another market to supplement their income. So even as an editor with the business, you're kind of on you eat what you kill. Everyone's incentivized. So I needed to find another market to supplement my income. Everybody else was looking the other way. I looked to Japan because I had a connection here, and I started doing work for the Japanese market as I was starting to figure it out. And then eventually that work started to become more than the local work that I had in LA, and I put together a business plan. So ultimately in 2011, hopped over here, began looking for a space, found this space, got the keys, we renovated it, and in 2012 we opened.
And so in terms of when you started here, you had to recruit people from zero, I guess. You had no staff. So, people probably never heard of Cutter Studio in Tokyo at that time, I can imagine. I never heard of you either. And so how did you get people to join you?
They had heard of us because I had spent the last 5 years or 4 years, I think, ever since 2008, 2009, I guess from 2012, yeah, it's maybe 4 years, coming over here and doing PR missions. So I had started to lay the seeds pretty early. Not only that, but the market at the time was really starved for a creative production company, or at that point we were more of a post-production company, and so when we first came over here, they were really receptive. But our biggest challenge was not finding local people that wanted to join us, but finding local people that could deliver a product that doesn't exist in Japan, only exists in LA, but in Japanese to a Japanese audience. That was our challenge. And it continues to be our challenge.
When you say a product that doesn't exist here, I mean, we're talking production, right? We're talking visual. I mean, this country's got tons of visual production. What's the thing that's not available here?
It's creativity first.
Right, okay.
I would say that the product that we deliver is creative first, meaning that our objective is to deliver the very best possible product. What I found with the Japan market is that it's very much about trying to please everybody.
It's also very celebrity driven here, isn't it? For a lot of the stuff
The
you
commercial
see,
work.
yeah, it's really celebrity driven rather than creative driven, I would suggest.
Right, and so we're definitely, I would say, creative driven, story driven.
Right. Okay.
Believe that that stories matter. We believe that stories are what resonate and what actually, if you're working for a brand, they're what actually moves product. They're what actually moves, that elevates the image of the brand, and gets results. So it could be argued that the Japan market was at the time very paint by numbers. We were offering a different solution. We had a couple of, there was in the very beginning, we befriended a couple of writers and got some good articles out on the market. One of them was calling us the black ship.
Okay.
And that was
Now, was that seen as a positive in the market or a negative? Because the black ship's got negative connotations about it to some extent, isn't it?
It's got negative connotations at the same time. It was disruptive. And disruption is actually, in the advertising world, something that is celebrated.
Right.
So we didn't come over. I mean, that one of the things about making a great product is you can't make a great product and make everybody happy. It doesn't work. You make a great product, you have to piss some people off. You have to tell some people they're wrong. And that's what we do. That's what we have the courage to do. One of our core values is courage. It's not chivalry.
Right.
It's being able to stand up there and say, you know what, it's not good enough. It's not going to move the product. It's not going to better the brand. And that goes for internally as well. I've got everybody's got carte blanche. Everybody at the company could stand up at any time and say, look, I don't think that this is great. And then we got to get together and figure out how to make it great.
So this is a type of creative democracy. Is that the idea that sort of everyone's voice has an equal weight and no one has dominance over the creative direction or evaluation? What are we talking about here?
Well, you can't have I don't think you can have any kind of a process without some sort of a hierarchy.
Right, okay.
So there is, for example, I'm a director, and on a project, ultimately, I'm going to make the decision. But I am going to consult my people.
Right.
And, we were on a shoot the other day, and it got to the point where I almost had to, turn everything off because I had 15 people telling me the best way to shoot this shot. But I was careful. I didn't want to shut anybody up. I asked some people politely, just please give me a few minutes. I got to think this one through. But in general, I'm trying to get, especially from my core creative team, and that's why we really set it up that way, so that there is a team of people who are experts in what they do. And because they are experts, it alleviates the burden on me to make every decision, to be an expert in everything. And that's also something that you don't see so much in Japan. The director tends to have this almighty power, and is expected to answer the questions of the people underneath him, saying, hey director, what should we do here? Whereas I ask the question, what do you think we should do?
So on the flip side of that is often in highly skilled areas, you tend to get the diva, people with strong personalities, opinions, self-belief, confidence around what they think, and therefore, as a leader, they can be hard to lead. They can be hard to manage. How about your experience with this?
It's a tough definition, because I think I have a little bit of a soft spot for the diva here and there. My mentor was referred to as a diva.
Okay.
And he was a great mentor. And sometimes, he asked for a few things that maybe he didn't need. But ultimately, I think that creativity takes yo-yo.
Okay.
And I haven't found a better word in English.
Right.
But yo-yo is what you need, that headspace. You need that just peace of mind in order to deliver. And I think that no one has the right to be an asshole.
Right.
People can be given I'd say, leeway to blow off some steam, to vent, to have a charged word here and there, and then apologize for it later. But no one has the license to be an asshole. But I do believe that they do have creative people in highly demanding positions and situations do have the right to demand what they need to have that yo-yo, to be able to do their job at a certain level.
So we think about, you've come out of this American created environment company. We're doing the same basic work. Now you're in Japan. So you've probably gone from a leadership methodology that's American. Now you're in Japan leading Japanese. What were some of the points for you that were a bit challenging to adjust to leading a Japanese team? Now you've got that added patina, I guess, of that creative person who's probably not your standard office employee, who's working in a typical company. They're by self-selection. They're in a particular industry. They've got a particular maybe avant-garde regard for how they want to do their work. They're not just typical Japanese for a start, I'm guessing. But what other adjustments did you have to make in terms of leading a team here?
Well, my team is very much mixed. So it's not only Japanese. We have people from all over the world. And that is a blessing and also a challenge, as I'm sure that you can imagine and have experienced.
So how many people are we talking about altogether here?
Right now we're at 15. So when we transitioned to a wholly owned Japanese entity, we transitioned from, so we're close to 30.
Okay.
But when so with the change of ownership, we are now 15 people.
Right.
The demands of the marketplace have changed. The future has changed. Where we're going, to a certain extent, and one of the reasons for, I'm sorry, I'll answer your question in a second, but one of the reasons for our the becoming a Japanese entity and splitting from the mothership is because the needs of this market and the opportunities on this market are different from those in the United States, and we have different ambitions. And that's largely when it comes to the entertainment world. We see a real opportunity in entertainment and branded entertainment specifically.
So what does that mean, branded? I'm sitting here going, branded entertainment, what is he talking about?
So you open up Netflix, or you open up one of the streamers, something that you watch. The money to make the program that you're watching comes from somewhere.
Right.
It might come from the traditional channel, which is a studio provides the funds based on a return that they are envisioning from a particular piece of, be it film or TV. Or it is a brand that is looking to push one of their messages or one of their ideas, their brand imaging through a piece of entertainment. I give you an example of there are branded entertainment is very, very popular right now. There's a lot of documentaries being made around sports teams.
Right.
That are on Amazon Prime, they're on Netflix. There was a good friend of mine, a producer in Germany, just made one for FC Bern. And it's a story about the team. It's a documentary series about the team that's funded by the team in order to promote the team.
Right.
But you watch it, you consume it as a piece of entertainment. It's not a commercial. It's not an advertisement.
Okay, right. So it's a very subtle approach.
It is, and so the reason that we see this as it is big now, and the reason that we see it getting bigger is because all of these channels, your Netflix, your Disney Plus, your Amazon, your HBO, all of them need content, and they can't afford to make it all. So they're going to look to who can afford to make it, and it's the brands. The brands are the ones that have the money to make it.
Okay, so let's come back to the leadership part around.
Oh yeah, okay. So
what were the challenges you found going from an American style environment to a Japanese environment as a leader?
As a leader. Okay, so this one is the biggest challenge straight off the bat was expecting to have the same resources available to me here in Japan as I did in LA.
Okay.
That
You're
wasn't the
talking
case.
about technical skill now.
Yes, I'm talking about technical skills. I'm talking about the. Once again, I'm going to get myself in trouble. It felt to me like when I came here, no one needed a job.
Okay.
That the labor market was doing so well
Mm-hmm.
that if I could put an ad out, I'd go to Recruiter, I'd be sitting there for weeks waiting for somebody to knock on the door, somebody to return an email. Whereas in LA, you just think about an open position, you got a line outside the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just goes to show how saturated the job market is in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
when especially in the film industry in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And so hiring was a really, really difficult, still is a really, really difficult thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
on that point, I was asking before, because for a lot of foreign organisations that start up here who are not necessarily all that prominent, well-known, household name type of thing, trying to get young people to join is not that easy, because their parents go, well, you should join a Japanese company, or their grandparents say you should join a Japanese company, or their spouse says you should join a Japanese company, not this foreign company, we don't know who they are, they won't be around, it won't last, you need something more stable. So there's a sort of push. Now, I understand that in this industry, it's probably more like the gig economy maybe in some ways, so it's probably a different mentality. But what was difficult about hiring, apart from the fact there was a lack of people or a lack of willingness to join your company, or both?
Well, there was a lack of the skill set that I was looking for,
Right.
and that comes from, once again, being, we have a product that we're bringing over, branding as the LA approach, or
Right.
the LA production.
Right.
Well, you don't have anybody that knows LA production here in Japan.
Right.
You got people that know Japan production, which is essentially selling ice to the Eskimos if we were going to make a Japan production.
Yeah, no
company
differentiation,
here.
right?
Exactly. So that was the biggest factor, and then being able to define what that is. Typically, when we develop people, it takes creative people take between 3 to 6 years to
Wow,
develop.
that's a long gestation
So
period.
that's it. That's the time that they spend as an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
We call them assistant creators,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm.
In the U.S., you can find people that can come in the third year of that,
Mhm.
but here we really have to start from the beginning.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
that's that. When it comes to hiring, that's really the biggest challenge. Is that it takes we have to start from the beginning, and it takes a long time. Now, there are incredibly talented, incredibly creative young people here
Mhm.
that want to work in this industry. We have something called the Future Filmmakers Program, where young people can join. They work with us for 6 months, and then they have the opportunity, if there's a position available, to stay on and work for Cutter Studios, or we recommend them elsewhere.
Mm.
That's
And now, did you create that to create a supply chain for yourself of talent, or why are you doing that? Or why do you have to create it? Why isn't there something equivalent already in existence?
Probably because no one's raised their hand to run it. But
Okay.
no, I actually created it in LA.
Oh, okay.
And one of our longest, one of our creators that's been here since the beginning, my wife Aki, was a product of that program.
Okay.
And so I mean the relationship is long.
Right.
3 to 6 years to develop someone, and you're
Yeah.
looking for somebody who's going to be a flag waving, just leader of the company. That's what our creators are,
Right.
and the opportunity to test the relationship, to test whether it's and that goes definitely for both sides.
Mhm.
Before committing to a long contract
Mhm.
is beneficial for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that come in and it's not for them.
But you did well. I mean, you managed to hire 30 people, when you had the previous arrangement. Well, 30 people's a sizable number in, as you've already talked about, a sort of a very specific field, which has a long gestation period. So there's a lot going on there. And that's why I think, what I'm hearing anyway, is quite an achievement to be able to get to that scale. Now, you may have rescaled it now that you've gone into a local entity, but still, to get that done in the first place, that's a lot of skill level, I would suggest, in there to be able to do that. So in terms of engaging the team, because I'm also imagining that the creative area is very much an individual pursuit and not necessarily a team play. It could be a lot of talented individuals cooperating, but it's different to being a team. So how do you go about engaging them as a team or as a unit to get behind Cutter's Studio and really drive that brand name, drive the quality, all the things you're talking about?
The first part is really picking and developing the people that are going to support that, that are going to be that dynamic. They just have it from the beginning. They have it, it's in their blood. Some of the things that I talk about, ask in interviews, are about people's favorite movies. What gets them excited? What's the why are they here? And the creative conversation and how it starts to flow and how it starts to it goes brick by brick by people adding something and then another person adding something and then another person adding something, and it getting bigger and better is so self-motivating for everybody that it's not something that I really need to teach. If you have the right people. Mastering it. So one of the things that is challenging. So we're very, very good at recruiting, onboarding, and developing great creative people. When it comes to and that would be on the creative side, and then on the producer side is more of your accountants. They're
logistics,
managing the schedule, the
coordination,
logistics, the budget,
exactly,
and so
budgeting,
on. And they have arguably in Japan the harder charge because they're the ones that need to kind of communicate how we do business, which is different. Sell that to a client, to a partner.
So what's different? I mean, you have a client has a need, you have a capacity to supply that need, you supply it. The creative might have a different angle on it. The LA vibe might be a little bit more cool and whatever, but what's so different?
I think it's that to make something great, you can't make everybody happy. That's the biggest part. And so you look at a Japanese TV commercial, and sometimes it just feels like you're getting, it's coming at you like in every direction. You've got the talent right there in the beginning. Somebody's singing and dancing. You got titles flying all over the screen. You got an incredibly loud music track, and then a voiceover on top of that. Well, that's the result on everybody having an opinion, and nobody's willing to tell anybody else that they're wrong.
Well,
let's just put it all in there.
On that point, though, and this always mystifies me, we're in the land of Zen, and Zen is that simplicity, clarity, essence. But you look at Japanese websites, they're a complete mess. Unbelievable. You look at Japanese presentations. You last night were at Tokyo American Club. I was giving that talk on presentation persuasion power. We didn't even get into how to prepare the slide deck that people use, because I wasn't using one, but it's a mess.
Right.
It's like everything plus the kitchen sink is on that damn slide. And you just wonder. Now, I'm looking at that as a non-Japanese thinking, wow, that's way too much information, too much distraction, lack of clarity there. And I look at the websites, oh my God, look at this thing, it's screaming at me too much. But this is what the Japanese are choosing. So again, I often question myself, is it just I'm not Japanese, so it doesn't appeal to me? They have a different rationale, they've got a different logic about this, so it works for them. Who am I to say this is too baroque and too crowded? So what do you think about that?
What I think, and So we could talk later about whether it stays on the record.
No, we can always cut it out, don't worry.
All right. What I think is that there is a big difference in the education. And going back to your question about what's hard about hiring. Well, it's finding people that are going to think for themselves, that are going to give me their opinion, that are going to actually go after the objective and take accountability for it. And what I find is that there are a lot of people that are waiting to be told what to do. And the websites, the slide decks, all of that kind of stuff look like an exercise in, we better put everything on there because what if? Instead of having the courage to say, you know what, we don't need this, we don't need that. It's also courage and discipline. And I think that that's something that in the education system here, I believe that boldness, the courage to stand up and once again, this is telling other people they're wrong or being very assertive when it comes to what you believe is right is something it's not really supported. It's not really it's not there it isn't encouraged.
We prefer harmony.
Right, and so with the harmony, but what you described is chaos. And so the harmony that you gain, that you earn in the short term, actually leads to chaos in the long run. Now the interesting thing is I see real harmony, where I see real Zen, where I see perfection in Japan, it's that restaurant that the guy runs by himself with maybe one employee. It's his canvas. He has complete control. He knows exactly what he is going to serve based on what he chose at the market with, this pairing and that, the lighting, the decor, everything is within that one person's control. Those people are incredible. And you look at the creators who are like that you have like a Sakamoto Ryuichi or even
composer, right?
Right. The what's the writer's name? Murakami Haruki. Yes. Like these are they are brilliant because they are unencumbered. They don't have to seek harmony in numbers.
Okay.
They can control their own domain. The problem with the film world is there are so many players. When you're in commercials, you're talking about a client that then has the big boss, and then the underboss, and then the boss under that boss, and then the boss under that boss, and then you finally got the marketing department who's been there a couple of minutes. They're going to think, okay, what did the guy before me do, and what did they, what did they get in trouble, or did they not get in trouble? And all of that is coming into this thing that's all kind of just a bunch of guesswork that ultimately comes down the pipeline, falls on my desk.
All right.
And it's like, hey, we want the green one, the blue one, the yellow one, and the pink one all at the same time.
Yeah.
And what's different about what we do? Well, everybody in Japan, every Japanese production company is going to give them all of that at the same time, whether it works or not. I'm going to push back. Cutter Studios is going to push back and say, guys, you hired us to do a job, to come up with a result, to deliver an objective, deliver on an objective. And if you want all of this, you kind of might as well just have done it yourself. It's like and I just was giving the example to my assistant upstairs. It's like, if you're an architect and the client who you're building a house for says, yeah, well, on the second floor, we want the kitchen, the bathroom, the billiards room, and all of this stuff. And then, on the first floor, we want nothing. You're like, okay, well, I got to build a lot of supports. No, we don't want any supports. The house is going to fall down. If you're an architect that has a bit of a conscience, you're not going to do it. But because film isn't killing anyone, they do it. And the results are mediocre.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. Are you doing business with Japan? Do you really know how things work? Japan Business Mastery provides the answers. Do you have the right networks and know how to create them? Do you know how to get on the same wavelength with Japanese buyers? Do you know what being trustworthy looks like from the Japanese perspective? Japan Business Mastery is based on more than 30 years' experience in Japan and will become your go-to guide. Want to succeed in Japan? Buy Japan Business Mastery now. So it comes back again to this point about leading a team. Like, we were talking before about how do you get the leadership of a team, but at the same sense you're talking about you want individual accountability, courage, boldness, all of these things, which in a way are a bit of a play against harmony, fitting in, no mistakes, don't create trouble, low profile. So you've got a bit of a counterpoint there. So I guess it comes back again to your point about hiring. You're actually weeding out those people and choosing people who can be standalone, accountable people who are prepared to have a point of view and defend that point of view and stick by that point of view and walk away if that's not acceptable to the client.
Yeah, well, okay, so it's hiring the right people. It's hiring the people that have all of those things, but then it's also celebrating the things that we cherish, our core values.
How do you celebrate? What are we talking here?
Celebrate failure.
Okay. Well,
when somebody sticks up and they try something.
How do you celebrate failure?
Well, first of all, you encourage them to try and fail.
Mm-hmm.
If there is, even in the smallest example of saying, when I was saying that I was on set the other day and people were giving me ideas, and they could tell that I was a little bit overwhelmed,
mm-hmm.
and they could tell that 90% of their ideas I wasn't listening to,
mm-hmm.
but they kept them coming,
mm-hmm.
because I do make it a point of reminding them
mm-hmm.
that it doesn't matter how many ideas I turn down, the
mm-hmm.
next one might be the golden egg.
Mm-hmm.
Keep them coming.
On that point, and this is a very critical point, how do you turn them down? Because a lot of brainstorming done in this country is done in a very ineffective way. And I'll give you an example. Give me some ideas. No, that won't work. Give me another one. We tried that. That failed. Give me another one. Well, by the time you get to the third one, everyone's looking at their shoes and the eye contact's gone and the whole contribution part is gone because people are realizing, well, I don't want to be embarrassed or humiliated here. So the best course of action for me is to say nothing and do nothing. So how do you deal with rejecting people's ideas in a creative context that keeps them trying?
I audition it.
Okay.
Audition the idea, put it up there, say, okay, what's good about this idea, what's bad about this idea, what's
mm-hmm.
going to work, what's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Is the entire idea not going to work? If not, is there something in here that we can take and couple it with another idea
mm-hmm.
that's going to make something great, that's going to
mm-hmm.
push to elevate our product or do whatever we're doing better.
Okay.
I mean, I think it comes down to picking the right people in the beginning, the people that are going to give you those ideas because you know that they've got when they're creative ideas, it really, there's to a certain extent you can hone a creative mind, but it's creative to begin with.
And on the flip side, how do you celebrate success?
Not enough. I'll be
I'm
honest
asking
there.
I'm asking that because I'm a shocker in this regard. I'm the classic grind, workaholic, achievement, great, next mountain, endless. And I really struggle to celebrate success enough. So I'm hoping for some gold here, Ryan, on how we should do a better job.
Okay, so one of the things that we will do is we will have, so if we put out a film, we will have a screening here in the lounge.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody grabs a drink and
Mm-hmm.
talks a little bit about the
Mm-hmm.
you know, the process and how it was, and then there's rounds of applause for
Mm-hmm.
most people. I think, you know, everybody pretty much is doing something spectacular on all of
Mm-hmm.
our projects. So we'll go
Mm-hmm.
around the room. That said, we don't do it enough, and this is a good reminder that we do need to celebrate the successes just as much as we celebrate the failures. I think success has become creative success, and this is I'm hoping that this doesn't sound arrogant. Creative success has become something that people are used to
Mm-hmm.
here. We struggle much more with financial success
Mm-hmm.
and the other, I suppose, the other business successes. But creative success is something that, because we have people that are infinitely passionate, creative, and it's not like, for example, we have 3 lead creators, is what myself and 2 others, and we operate as kind of individual teams.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 3 creative teams.
Mm-hmm.
I have no doubt that what comes out of Sachi's team or Aki's team is going to be wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to push, it's going to push boundaries. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
excellent work.
Mm-hmm.
And so on that level, I think I've almost become a little bit immune to
Mm-hmm.
the celebration of success. It feels
Gotcha.
like it's just that's the norm.
Mm.
But yeah, we should be celebrating it more.
I think probably all of us could be doing more in that regard, certainly. And certainly we think about innovation, and it's very intriguing because you're in a very creative business, so creativity is a sort of given. But do you have methodologies you've found which accentuate the creativity or really increase the creativity? And I don't mean just the people in the creative side, because as you say, there's a financial aspect of this business, there's an administration, logistics part of this business. There are many elements in the business where innovation and creativity can be applied to improve processes, reduce costs, increase, revenues, whatever. Do you have a methodology you found that helps not just the pure creative of that particular piece that you're making, but beyond that for the company as a whole?
Yeah. Meticulously plan every frame.
Right. Okay.
We don't do anything
Mm-hmm.
without a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the as a podcast, I probably really can't take you into the details of our process, but we do something called pre-visualization.
Pre-visualization. Okay.
So on every project that
Mm-hmm.
we do, or at
Mm-hmm.
least for the last few years,
Mm-hmm.
we build what's called it's shortened to previs.
Okay.
We build a previs, which is essentially if you were looking at a video game version of what our final product
Mm-hmm.
will become,
Mm-hmm.
that's what it looks like.
Right.
So we have our characters in a space that we design in a 3D world. So have you ever heard of Unreal Engine?
What's it called?
Unreal Engine?
Unreal Engine. Never heard of Unreal Engine. That's a new one for me.
So Unreal Engine is a technology developed by, why is the name escaping me? Epic Games? It's called Epic Games. It's please let me say, by Epic Games,
Mm-hmm.
because I shouldn't be having a question mark on that in my business. It's a little bit embarrassing. And they've created what it is, a world.
Mm-hmm.
And in this world, there is a marketplace, and there are things, physical structures, there are people, there's everything that anybody wants to build to put into this world.
Mm-hmm.
And we can build our sets, we can build our locations, we can build out our characters, we can move them, we can do all of our lighting, all of our camera work in a virtual space, have that completely nailed down before we even step foot on set.
Okay. Okay.
So if the After the talk, I'll show you.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah, fascinating.
There's
So I guess my point's a little bit different though, because what you're talking about is the creative element. What I'm talking about is the people who are not necessarily in that creative element. You've got people here who are hopefully selling the business, people here who are doing accounting, people who are doing logistics. Well, I'm talking about that crew. How do you get them to be thinking about how can we make this business better? How can we make it more efficient? How can we make it faster? How can we make cost reduction? That type of creativity, because it's one of those ironies, you know, the cobbler's children run barefoot.
Huh.
And so in a creative business, often, you know, are the creative elements also being applied to the people who actually run the business side of it to get creativity there? All the creativity goes, what's going to turn up on screen? So I'm just curious if you've actually found anything you could apply to the sort of, I'll call it, for want of a better word, I can't think of a better word, let's call it back office rather than front office here in terms of that creative sense, to help people be more creative and innovative about running the business more efficiently.
It's something I've struggled with for sure.
Mm-hmm.
The innovation that we apply in the back office, I think, comes from the absolute need for innovation in the back office, because our front office is moving at a grueling pace.
Right.
And it's that, you know, that stretch to keep up. It's that, you know, for like production moves so fast that the accounting, the billing, the invoicing, all of that stuff has to happen lickety split. So I mean, there's I don't think that we have a methodology,
Right.
But we have people that are war trained in that pace.
So they become nimble, agile to keep up with the pace of the business. Like
Yeah, I mean, we've got
natural attrition, I guess.
we've got a genius of a CFO.
It's always good to have a genius CFO, I'd have to say.
Yes, we've got a young genius of a CFO, and he works with a business administrator, and the two of them really take care of most of our books.
Right.
We didn't have him 2 years ago, and it was a much more dire situation.
Was it? Mm.
So yeah, with him, we've got a lot more organization. Things are being processed and programmed, and I don't have to keep my eye on it so much.
That's good. What about trust? You know, in terms of building trust in the business with each other, you know, with you as the leader, what have you found has worked well to build trust between you and the team?
Open communication, I think, is that trust, like putting your feelings out there so that they can put their feelings out. And that's something that, you know, obviously in Japan is a little bit more challenging. People are less willing to share what they really feel, what they really think. But I think that by initiating it yourself, you're a lot more likely to get their feelings.
Now, is that a natural play for you? Like someone like me, when I hear that, I'm a very, very private person. I'm all over social media, so you never think that, but that's business. But you'd be hard pressed to find hardly anything about me personally in the public world, right? I keep that very private, and you know, that opening up the kimono type of idea to others is not something that comes naturally to me as a leader, and I have to really work on that, you know, to have that openness so people can have some sense of trust with me. Now, for you, is that a natural play that's how you are, or is that something you've learnt to do?
Definitely learned to do.
Okay.
We are filmmakers, creators. We're introverts.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
That's quite opposite what I would have imagined.
Really?
Yeah, I would have thought you're very, you know, going out and being very much, you know, driving off the energy of the room and the people and typical extrovert behavior. That's very intriguing.
No, Greg, we like to sit in dark rooms and make things.
Okay.
this is how, like the having to talk to people is, I'm trained.
Right.
I've been doing this for quite a while, and it's not something that I really think about anymore. But would I rather be out, for example, doing sales, or would I rather be up in the room putting together, a storyboard or an edit? I'd much rather be up there doing the storyboard and the edit.
Gotcha.
It's really the creator's nature, I think.
So on that point then, if that's the nature and that's how you are, and you're talking about building trust through open communication, what have you found works well to overcome maybe that natural play you have of being an introvert, to have that open communication with people to build that trust?
Well, one thing is just time. Spending the time with them. If they only see you, once every 2 weeks and it's for 5 minutes, there's not going to be a lot of trust. Even if you walk in for those 5 minutes and say, hey, I'm having a really bad day, and spill your guts, you're still not going to get what you're looking for. But if you're able to spend the time with them, and that's why it's one of the reasons why we broke down into our specific teams. I'm
guessing then that you have not had everyone being introverted at home. You've actually got them in this building working together, or are they at home? Because that whole point about having that exposure for a lot of companies has become very hard now, because the people are not in the office, they're at home.
Yeah. It was tough during the pandemic. We are mostly back in the studio, but we have a loose, it's kind of a loose agreement. If people have things to do, they can go and do their things and then come into the studio when they need to. But I think for the most part, they like to be here.
Okay.
I prefer it. So if I'm writing, I'm not going to come here.
Right.
If I'm trying to develop an idea, a concept, I'm going to do that at home. I'll do it at TAC. But I come in here and I need to be on. It's literally, I've got the open for business sign on my head.
Okay.
So I can't really concentrate creatively, but I can give people feedback, and I can talk to them about what they're progressing on when I'm here. And so I do make it a point of coming in here, spending, for example, today I've been here since 11 and I'll be here until 5. That's kind of a long day at the office for me.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I won't spend. Generally, it's not morning first thing until night. I'll try to. The way that I break up my day is creative stuff while I'm fresh in the morning.
Like Winston Churchill with the whiskey and cigars at 2:00 in the morning, writing the history of the Western civilization or something.
Well,
like that.
The whiskey was probably what kept him going, but no, I find that that's probably not the best way to.
For you, yeah. I'm a bit like you. I'm a morning person too. I'm more sharp, creative in the morning, and I have a rule with my team. I tell them, do not ever ask me for anything creative in terms of input after 3 p.m. Come back and see me the next day, because I won't have anything of quality for you. You've got to get me at least, probably morning is even better, but the absolute limit. I know that about myself, so I sort of try and adjust my schedule to suit that.
Yeah, absolutely the same. I think that they say that a person has 8 creative hours in the day.
Is that it? Right. Okay.
And those you can't decide when you have them.
Right.
And so mine start as soon as I wake up. And so when I try to clear my head. I go for a run. And then after the run, I'll come back and start to get into work. I try to avoid Slack. We use Slack in the morning.
And that's because it's a quagmire of detail.
Oh, it's just like there's everybody's problem that's still going to be a problem 2 hours, 3 hours later is there. And if I get into it first thing, I'll be in it all day.
Right. So we talked a little bit about open communication to build the trust. And one of the things too I'm interested in is culture, because you've created this entity in Japan from zero, right? And you've been able to hire people. You've had 30. You've now reconfigured you down to 15. But still, you've built a culture, I imagine, inside the company. What have you found has worked well in building a culture?
Fun.
Fun. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's people work hard here, and they work hard here because they like working hard. I don't ever have to tell anybody, especially any of our creators, that they need to work harder or they need to work longer. Actually, it's quite the opposite. But I have to make sure that people are having fun, because if they're not having fun, they're not doing good work.
Well, just on that point, you talked before about you're the introvert, right?
Yeah.
I'm an introvert too. If it was up to me, there'd never be any fun, because I'm just work, work, work. I know that about myself. I have to get other people to be tasked to create the fun events or activities or something, because I realize about myself I'm hopeless in that regard. So
right, but you understand the importance of it, and you task somebody with it. All right, and that's the same thing with me. And it's what I've been telling our CFO, who's starting to step into more of a greater managerial role. Fun takes work. Yeah. Culture takes work. You have to force it. It's like a marriage. You can't just expect it to grow naturally. It doesn't. Right. So we have some things that I am absolutely, like, if I died today, or if the Cutter Studios went away today, I would be eternally proud of. One of those is movie day. Right. Once every month. Yep. We escape the office. And we go see a movie at the cinema.
Everyone.
Wow. Everyone. Okay, so there are exceptions to that. We try to make it the best. There isn't a better word for mandatory, but we try to make it so that everybody can
highly encouraged.
Highly encouraged, and we do. We get the producers to schedule around it, so that people can get out there and go, because it's important. It reminds us why we do it, but it's also fun.
So, are you going to art house movie screenings, or
no? We'll go to like the Avengers or something like that as well.
I mean, standard fare.
Yeah, standard, but also generally it'll be like one of the big anticipated movies.
So a lot of production values and serious money thrown at this movie then.
Most of the time, I mean, like, the new Blade Runner comes out, we'll go see that. When there are things that are just that are kind of they're the tent poles that if you're in this business you're going to see. Art house stuff I watch a lot of. I watch it at home.
Right. Okay.
It's stuff that you really want to be in a theater to watch. That's one of them. We do barbecues, we do parties.
Okay.
Some of some of the parties, if they're bigger parties, they are business development focused. But the smaller parties where it's just us, it's just blow off steam. And as much as everybody's an introvert, when it's just us, everyone has fun. Okay. And we get to talk to the people that aren't on our specific team, yeah, it's fun.
So what about if given your experience here, and I know you're in a very specific industry, but still you've got a good understanding of Japan, business here, how things work. If you're going to give some advice to someone who's being sent to Japan, okay, go to Japan, run our organization there, what would be some advice you'd give that person?
There's a few things that I probably say. One thing about Japan is I'm still figuring it out. And I think that if I was going to give myself advice when I first arrived here, right, I would tell myself that I don't know everything, and that I'm still going to be figuring it out in 10 years. So don't assume that you know everything. And to go into every problem with that attitude, with that perspective, knowing that there's going to be a curveball, there's going to be something that you just would not expect. Because so many times I've been caught off guard and made an assumption, and the assumption was wrong. I would say that to that person, your number one challenge is going to be staffing. It's going to be hiring. It's going to be HR related, so it might be training, it might be onboarding. To develop systems, develop them early. Japan does well with systems, I believe. If you are able to communicate what people need to do on a very basic level, you're going to get performance. I think that coming from a country like the US, we operate on people do what they're going to do, and you kind of build the system around them. Whereas in Japan, I think you build a system and you then manage that system and get the people to operate within it.
Get them to conform.
Yes, maybe a slightly more positive word than conform, but the idea being that you look at I used to work in baseball.
In
baseball,
okay.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity it was the interpreter for one of the Japanese players who went and played for the major leagues. I did it for 2 seasons.
Wow.
And I got an inside look at the differences between Japanese baseball and American baseball. The way that the team is trained, the way that the players train, the way that the players fought. And the American game is very much an individual game. The players train on their own. They come to the ballpark when they want. In Japan, they train as a team. The practices are organized. In the U.S., they don't even have practices.
Really?
There's no practices. They play 163 games a year. There's no time for practices.
Oh, okay.
So then, here they play what? 150? 130? Anyway, but it's still a lot of games. They have organized practices, and everybody works as a team.
They go to Okinawa for the Gashku. They go,
They
somewhere.
go to Okinawa. I've been to that Gashku.
With sort of hell for a week or something. Yeah.
There is a lot of hell. There's a lot of drills. There's a lot of. It's been described as militaristic, but it is a system. And it works as a system. And when you take a lot of the reason why a lot of the Japanese players that go to the U.S. don't make it, they don't succeed, and they come back here, or they just it's not for them, is because they have a hard time operating in that lack of a system.
Okay.
So you and I think that a lot of the American players or the non-Japanese players who come to Japan to play, they have a hard time adjusting to just how systemized it is.
Yeah.
So if you'll read every business book on the planet, and every business book on the planet is going to tell you that every market is the same, that everywhere operates exactly the same. There might be a language difference or something like that. That's wrong. Japan operates differently.
I think so too.
And if you think that this is going to work because it worked over there, it doesn't mean it's going to work here. Have a system that works in Japan, and run that system and trust that system. And then if you've created status quo, if you've gotten to a point where you have stability, then you can work on pushing up from there. And this is all what I'm saying right now is all based on my mistakes. We have a role, the studio manager, that this person is very much the almost like the parental element in the studio. They're taking care of the stocking the refrigerator, handling guests when they come in, making sure everybody is fed and caffeinated when they're working hard, making sure the studio is clean, and when guests come over I already said that, they're taking care of guests, making sure that the guests are happy, and when the red carpet needs to be rolled out, it's rolled out, organizing parties, etc., etc. Well, I'm thinking Japanese hospitality, this is perfect. Fill that role in a micro minute.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have been more wrong.
Really?
The role is too undefined. It doesn't have that, here's the menu, these are the things you say, in this circumstance, there's this circumstance, in that circumstance, you clock out at 6. That level of figure it out, make it your way, works very well for an American. Or at least in my experience in LA, it's been a challenge here.
Right.
We actually, at the moment, we don't have anybody in the role.
Right. What else what other advice would you give them? Should they learn Japanese?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that it would be a challenge. I have seen many foreigners here in Japan. I mean, I'd say like right now, I'm impressed by the vast majority of the foreigners I meet speak Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Ones that are here for a significant period of time. I think that's changed.
Mm-hmm.
But the foreigners that don't speak Japanese, I find are not able to connect on a deeper level.
Mm.
That the communication is limited and will always be limited. And there is this factor that I think that people, I don't know if it's respect. I don't know if it is just a language thing, but I find that when something is communicated from a person that does not speak Japanese, it's communicated in English or whatever language, and then it goes through an interpreter or it's understood by the Japanese person, it carries less weight. It has less of a chance if it's an order, if it's a suggestion, if it's whatever it might be. It has less of a chance of actually getting done or being considered when it's coming in English.
And what would be your definition of leadership?
Well, leaders are followed.
Leaders are followed. Mm-hmm.
So to operate in a manner that makes people want to follow you.
I'm thinking of Yogi Berra there with his quote about leadership is easy, it's getting people to follow you that's the hard bit.
That's a good one.
That's one of his more articulate quotes, I know, but it's
that's
a good one.
He's absolutely right. I mean, that's the thing. You can come up, you can have the best idea in the world, but if you're not able to articulate that idea, if you're not able to communicate, if you don't take the time to explain it, to lay it out so that other people can understand, they have nothing to follow. They have nothing to aspire to. And so leadership it's about, communication is huge, but it's about getting people to follow, I think.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up. We could probably go on for many hours. I mean, there are so many avenues we could explore here today, but we'll probably keep it to roughly an hour or so. So thank you for that. And I appreciate your time today and hosting me here in the Cutter Studio. That's wonderful.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Well, join us again for our next episode of Japan's top business interviews.